Hey, welcome back, guys. Roby1 here. So I know that the last 3 videos I posted were all movie-related stuff, which, as I mentioned in my first video, was definitely something that was possible, if not probable, and going to happen. But I kind of figured that I wanted to get back to talking about some game stuff. So you're probably right now watching a little bit more Call of Duty Ghosts on the Wii U. You should be seeing one of my few really super kick-ass matches, which I believe was on Chasm, what was initially one of my favorite maps. Not so much anymore, but still a great map. There's not really, I can't even think of one map in that game that I'm really not enjoying. So anyway, yeah, enjoy the footage of me doing pretty darn okay in Call of Duty Ghosts. So what it was that I wanted to actually talk about today, getting back into gaming, was based on a really interesting article, really quick, short news snippet that was posted on IGN just a few hours ago from the time of this recording, which is Tuesday night. And it's from his name is Palmer Luckey. He is the gentleman who is responsible for the Oculus Rift. The Oculus Rift, as most of you know, and for anyone who doesn't, is a pretty cool looking virtual reality kind of unit that does not only simulate an actual virtual reality where, of course, you place the helmet over your head and face, and as you look around, the movement of the camera and what you see is reflecting where your head is moving, not just where you'd be moving a mouse or analog sticks or what have you. But it also uses actual real 3D. So what's cool is it's not just the the 2 images on 2 different monitors that are so close up to each eye that they give the illusion of looking at screens right up close in 2D. It's supposed to actually be in 3D, and it looks really cool. I've watched a lot of really funny videos of people like PewDiePie and Markiplier and some pretty cool people I like to follow on YouTube play it, and it looks pretty badass. I definitely would love to get my hands on one. A really good friend of mine, someone who here on this podcast, this channel every once in a while, but I won't say who he is, actually has access to it through his job, which I will not tell you what his job is, but he's spoken about it a little bit. Sounds pretty cool. I know he's not really using it for gaming applications, which is, again, why I'm not going to tell you who he works for and what he does, but it definitely is something that I'm very curious about. So what's interesting about this article is that it's in reference to, again, Palmer Luckey, the man responsible for creating it, and his company says that he doesn't really see the Oculus Rift being viable on consoles anytime soon. And that, of course, means both last-gen consoles, and even more importantly, he's even speaking about the new consoles, the next generation consoles, the PS4, the Xbox One, and of course the Wii U, basically saying that it really just, because of the ever-evolving nature of the software and the unit, the technology behind it, as well as the similarly ever-evolving nature of PC hardware, that's really the platform that it's ideal for, and I think that's what him and his team are really only focusing on, and they're not really concerned about the console market moving forward with the Oculus Rift. Some interesting quotes from IGN's article. What he says here is, he's telling this to Tech Radar. He says, consoles are too limited for what we want to do, and this is all quotes. We're trying to make the best virtual reality device in the world, and we want to continue to innovate and upgrade every year. Continue making progress internally. So that's definitely something that right there speaks to the differences between the nature of PC hardware and, of course, console hardware, even really fantastic technical hardware like what the PS4 and Xbox One are built on. Here's the really interesting thing, something that I think we would have all seen coming based on what this news article is about. He says, again, and I quote, "The problem with consoles in general is that once they come out, they're locked to a certain spec for a long, long time." And that is definitely true. To tell you the truth, it's one of the reasons why I myself kind of prefer consoles to PC gaming overall. I still love PC gaming, and as I said, I have a really nice rig for gaming that I use it for the right kinds of games, and I love it. And I don't mind using a mouse and keyboard for the right kinds of games. But there's a level of uniformity and consistency you get with consoles simply because of how they're built. They can, when making games and software for consoles, they can account for certainty. They always know it has this capability in this department, this capability in that department. My technical jargon, by the way, only goes so far, so forgive me, but this much I definitely understand about the difference. With PCs, there's so many different factors and facets, and they can be built in myriad different ways in myriad people's homes with different abilities on some areas and not as much on the others, and yada yada. So it really becomes more difficult to make things work and run smoothly and optimally on a PC compared to, the console is just the box made to do as much ass kicking as you're able to get out of it. And while the PCs ultimately are always going to be, a jump or so ahead of whatever the current console market is, the fact that there is a simplistic uniformity to what consoles offer make that for me, just more comfortable. But again, we're not really talking about what I prefer, what I don't prefer. What's interesting is how he talks about the fact that he doesn't see the Oculus Rift being used even on the next-gen consoles. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that overall, just because it's really virtual reality and what the Oculus Rift is trying to do, and if it's actually viable for legitimate gaming and gaming experiences down the road that I think about when I think about this. So if it's not going to work on consoles, do I worry? Do I worry because I'd be willing to still play it on the PC if it becomes a publicly made available device? And B, I'm not worried because I don't really know if I would even want to use it on one of my consoles, any one of the next generation consoles or anything. Like I said a few seconds ago, is virtual reality important? Will it become important? I mean, if you were to answer it right now today, the answer is really no. Virtual reality has, for anyone else who, like myself, goes back to gaming from the 80s and through the 90s, virtual reality was like this magical, mystical, it was like the great white buffalo of gaming. It's like, man, like my Super Nintendo's pretty awesome. And then you go to the arcades and it's like, oh my God, this is like 10 times what my Super Nintendo and my Genesis can do at home. This is like gaming, the ultimate pinnacle of gaming. But then, virtual reality was kind of a thing. It was talked about. You would see it in movies. Like, it was this really cool sort of effect that movies would use to sort of, exemplify what the future would be doing and cool stuff like that, And there was the occasional, like, arcade unit I remember seeing where you could sort of put this thing over your face and move it around, and it would be like emulating what virtual reality was like. None of that was ever very good, of course, but it was just the idea. So, virtual reality was always this thing that we thought was where we needed to get to. It was like, that's the end game for gaming. Like, better graphics, cooler controllers, that's all well and good, and that's doing its job. But at some point, we'll be putting on helmets, and we'll be, like, living the games in a totally different way. And when you're like, 10, 12, 14 years old, that's bad fucking ass. That's all you could possibly want in life. Screw getting a job, screw getting married, man. Just give me virtual reality and let me sit down in my parents' basement. That's all I need, Nowadays, it's been a long time since that's been like, on the relative pulse of the gaming industry and of the gamer, the idea of virtual reality. The Oculus Rift, it's pretty neat in the sense that it's actually kind of brought it back to the forefront to a degree, in the sense that we talk about it, we think about it, we see it. It seems pretty neat. Like I said, I've seen a bunch of videos of people playing it, granted in funny scenarios, but it's still, as far as watching the tech of being able to do that, it looks pretty fun. I really, really want to try it. And of course, it gets you wondering if virtual reality will be important. So will it be important in the future, whether it's the near future or the far future? That's harder to answer. Because I could see it going, it's sort of like, it could emulate what like motion control did, where at first we weren't quite sure about it. Would it be good? Would it not be good? Would it be, efficient? Is this the way we want to play games? It ended up being really successful. The Wii itself was really successful. And as a fan of the Wii, I definitely think that when motion control was done right, it was great. I don't think it ever was and never will be officially the future of gaming, but I think it now has a place in gaming because of that kind of success. We've seen failures, the PlayStation Move wasn't really very popular. Kinect made a lot of money for Microsoft, and obviously they're still pushing forward Kinect in a big way, but you can't necessarily say it was successful in its application. No one, I think, really loved it or was blown away by what it did, but they kind of sold a lot of units based on the hype and the buzz, and so they're still trying to do different things down the road. So virtual reality, the Oculus Rift, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like I said, the reason I likened it to motion control is because we had an uncertainty about motion control, and then it ended up taking off and being really successful for the time. And so we can sit here and say, well, I don't really think virtual reality or the Oculus Rift is going to be very popular. I don't think it's going to take off, yada, yada. And even if it doesn't ever become really the ultimate way to be gaming in, another even 10 or 15 years, another few console cycles or what have you, I think it still could end up even having a similar place like what motion control did after its initial burst and its initial success, whereas now it's just sort of accepted and has its applications here and there. Maybe that could be that way with virtual reality. So I don't really think that it necessarily matters that it's not going to be available on consoles, at least right now. Obviously, that stuff can always change, and there's a level of it that's disappointing too, because I feel like he doesn't have to say that it wouldn't really work on consoles, and he doesn't have to. It doesn't even have to be true that it doesn't work on consoles. I'm pretty sure they could make a virtual reality unit. They could make the Oculus Rift work for any of the 3 next-gen consoles. There's no doubt in my mind. Even not knowing the technical specs about this kind of stuff inside and out, I mean, it's kind of common sense. Yes, maybe you'd be more limited. Maybe you'd always probably be able to say it's going to be the better experience, the more varied experience on PC, what have you, blah, blah, blah. That's fine, but there's no reason to say that it has no real home or place on home consoles and the next generation consoles. To me, that just seems like you're, dividing your market, alienating some of the gamers out there, and I think maybe even trying a little too hard to make your unit sound that much more elite. And I'm not trying to take anything away from a lot of the facts he says about PC gaming. Like, I get that is true. When he talks about how console specs are locked in for a period, and with PCs it's not that way, that's true. And that is one of the benefits of PC gaming, and I get that that's one of the benefits of PC gaming. And it's interesting because the article even mentions somewhere near the end a pair of Sony patents that may relate to the virtual reality headset the company is allegedly in development. Basically talking to the fact that Sony apparently has had and still kind of has plans to work on some sort of virtual reality headset or virtual reality implementation, which of course I'm sure would be applicable to the PS4. And to tell you the truth, if they do that, whether it's successful or not, I'm willing to bet it'll probably be still pretty cool. And it'll probably work well for what it's supposed to do. If it doesn't take off, I have a feeling it's not going to be maybe because it's poorly implemented or it's poor quality virtual reality. It might just be, indicative of the fact that people that might not be ready for it or even that interested in it, but we're really kind of guessing on the future at that point. So I don't know, I just kind of wanted to share my 2 thoughts, get back into some gaming stuff. The Oculus Rift I think is really neat. If you haven't had a chance to see it, you can find a lot of cool stuff on YouTube if you just if you just YouTube search Oculus Rift videos. I highly recommend looking up some of the horror games that you can see. Like I mentioned earlier, PewDiePie and a guy named Markiplier. Those are 2 people who, God, I love them so much. And watching them play scary games in the Oculus Rift is quite entertaining. So I'm going to give them a little bit a shout out, a little bit of a silent plug, because I'm right now nobody on YouTube, and they will never know who I am and don't really know that I'm giving them a plug, but I am. So please go check that stuff out. See what the Oculus Rift is. If you have any thoughts about it and what it could do, could it be cool? Does it matter if it's on the next generation consoles or not? Should it just stay PC? I don't know. Share whatever thoughts you want. So hopefully you enjoyed this little bit of gameplay video from Call of Duty Ghosts. Hopefully you enjoyed me talking about some more consoles, some gaming stuff, and some virtual reality. Please subscribe to the video, because subscribing to the channel really helps me out, makes me feel like what I'm doing is worth it. I enjoy this and I'm going to keep on doing it. So hopefully you guys like it. Please let me know what you think. I love the feedback, and I hope you guys are having a good time, and thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.